resellers, and welcome to episode 271 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is May 27th, 2026, and my guest is Russ from Rhode Island. Announcements. As I mentioned last week, the first Happy Mail mailing went out around May 20th. Like any new venture, there were a few small kinks to work through, but those have already been ironed out for future mailings. I have been delighted by the feedback so far. Members have shared wonderful comments about the inserts, the affirmation card, and the letter, which featured a true story about what I believe was an angel intervention. Several recipients told me the package exceeded their expectations and that they could tell a great deal of thought and care went into every detail. One member summed it up beautifully when she wrote, "A lot of people will love this, especially those who know you. What a great way to take your heart and put it on paper." I am truly grateful for the kind words and encouragement, and I'm already hard at work on the June edition. If you'd like to receive the June Happy Mail package, be sure to sign up by the end of May. I'd love to send a little happiness to your mailbox. Okay, let's talk with Russ.
We have an interesting coincidence that we have 2 weeks in a row of sellers in Rhode Island. After 5 years of having nobody from Rhode Island, they showed up together. So we have Russ with us today. And how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm just Ducky. Suzanne, how are you?
Good, good. We both had a busy morning. And so here we are. Take a little break and talk about some eBay stuff. And you actually reached out to me, which I love, to come on the show and talk about some things. So where exactly in Rhode Island are you?
I'm in what's called South County. There's an area it's called Exeter, West Greenwich. It's kind of a rural community, a lot of woods and farms, and the simple life, I guess you want to say.
Okay, good.
If you ask the long-term residents, they'll say it's boring as anything, but it's nice. It's very peaceful. We're about a mile deep in the woods, so we get to enjoy that. So,
and how long have you lived in that state?
I grew up in Rhode Island.
So
I'm a native.
You're kind of a native. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good,
Yep.
good. All right. Well, let's transition to talking about eBay. And when did you start selling?
I started technically in '99, and I went full bore in 2000. So I'm part of the old guard where I remember getting money orders in the mail, getting paid by bill point. PayPal was X.com back then. If you remember
really?
any of that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a history junkie when it comes to different things. So, and it was funny because people were, it was kind of like a rumor mill, and I'd hear different people discussing eBay, and I don't jump on the newest trends right away unless I've kind of vetted them myself. It's funny because my parents owned a store, and I got tossed into it kind of the way a lot of people that you seem to have as guests and yourself. We owned a store, and we did a lot of music items, records, tapes, CDs, things like that. A lot of swag, pins, concert shirts, tour shirts, and all that. I've been involved in like selling and flipping and resale and all that since I was 11 years old. This is when my parents started looking for side things. They both worked their tails off. They started doing the flea markets way back in the early '70s. We had just moved to a town called Coventry, and obviously, we have a working family. They looked for other ways. Well, my mother opened up a store, and it was a lot of secondhand goods. Used to go to a lot of the local auctions, and then they started doing the flea markets, and it took off like a rocket for them. My dad retired. He went full time with the store. If there was any Saturday or Sunday flea markets around, one of them would definitely be set up. But I learned a lot from that. I learned how to run a business. I learned how to deal with customers of all types. And believe me, there's all types, especially face to face.
Yeah, we know.
My parents were incredible with that. I owe a lot to them. My mom could buy something for $1 and she'd sell it for 20. My dad would buy something for $1 and he'd sell it for 15, but he knew how to run the business. I'm of the mindset I'll buy something for $1 and I'm probably gonna get 50 to 100 for it. So I just kind of like morphed it out. No, they owned the store for about 25, 30 years. And my mom had a stroke and a brain tumor, so it left her incapacitated. I got married in the meantime, and he ran the store. He ran the store 6 days a week. He would go to the store, open up, run for a few hours, go back and get my mom lunch or whatever, see what she needed, run back to the store. It was a back and forth thing for him. And then on Sundays, he would set up at the flea market, and that was his cash cow right there. He did it up until he turned just about ready to turn 82 when he passed away.
Oh, wow.
Now, in between that, before my mom had gotten sick, it was funny because it was almost like if we walked into a store that was going out of business, it was almost like what you see in the movies where the double doors go and smoke,
Right.
all that. But I've walked into music stores with my mother that were going out of business, and I just approached the owner. I mean, I'm like probably 17 at the time. And I just asked him point blank, are you interested in selling the whole business? Okay, if you got the money, do it. Well, we did. I'd walk in, I'd start escorting customers out the door and locking up and stop, we come about a price. And we've bought everything from bought a musical instrument store, bought a music store, like, CDs and all that. Bought a local convenience store, like little market, community market. We bought that out. A drugstore, one of the old Rexall drugstores, bought them out. It's one of those things that's like buy in bulk and great. I learned what negotiating was. And eventually I wound up taking over the negotiating, and my mother and I were dangerous to get into a place. It was crazy. But what my parents would do is, like, when we bought out the market, they would break it up into different sections. Stuff that we want to keep, stuff that we want to sell at the store, stuff that they would donate to, like, there were different families like around the proximity of the store that just weren't doing well. Families that had like 7 kids, and my mother and I would go over with bags and bags and bags of like all kinds of like dried foods, anything that could help them out. And they were really big on that, and kind of help. They knew what it was like to be without money, so they kept that all in mind. My mom got sick, and I got married, started having babies and stuff. Well, actually, my wife started having babies. I was just a bystander.
And you were just a figurehead, yeah.
Yeah, I was on the sidelines. Go. Yeah. When he passed away, one of the big things about when you do a job like that, in addition to the store, you accumulate a lot of stuff. And my mother was a hoarder, to say the least. She saw a lot of stuff that was of value, and a lot of stuff would leave, but more stuff would stay. So when it came time, she was in the nursing home, I had to clean out the house. It took me over a year to clean the house out. And it was a full-size ranch. And I mean pathways through the house. There was a pathway into each room except my dad's, because my dad's like, no way, that stuff's coming in here.
That is quite a job for those left behind to tackle that project. It's not just physical, it's all the decision making and emotional stuff and memories and nostalgia, and it's a big like cocktail of things to deal with.
It's a unbelievable and unfathomable like weight on your shoulders, because you figure I was working full time, probably about, I think at the time I scaled back, I was working about 45 hours a week, 50 hours a week. And I would leave work, I would go to their house, I would work on the house until probably 2 o'clock in the morning, sorting and what's garbage, what's going to go. And I had to deal with their business, the store itself. So I had a fully stocked store full of, you name it, dumpster after dumpster at the house and all that, and trying to make on the spot decisions. All right, well, is this sellable? Is this a yard sale item? And then I started thinking like eBay just really started to like rear its head with me. Mistakes were made and jackpots were hit, but it was funny because I started doing it. I can tell you the first thing I bought just as a test, and I can tell you the first thing I sold. We're going back
Great.
that far.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
Well, it was funny because I was like very skittish on it. And the very first thing that I bought was one of those, remember the birds with the cup? You'd put the cup of water and the thing would like, it had a top hat and it would dip further each time, and it would dip its beak into the cup of water and then come back. It had like some kind of a liquid inside of it that was drawn with the water. It's weird. Yeah, I know you.
I do not remember that. What was this used for?
It was just an entertainment thing.
Yeah, okay.
It was. I think they called it like a bobbing bird or something. One of these.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yep. It was a kitschy item. It popped in my head, and I impulse bought. And the very first thing that I sold was a limited edition CD by the Rolling Stones called Flashpoint and Collectibles. And I figured I'd throw that on there, see what happened. And I was manager at a local music chain. So anytime something limited edition came in, I'm a junkie for that stuff. So I'd scoff it right up and go from there. But I'm not a huge Stones fan, so I wound up listing it on eBay as a test. And in the store, I think it was $19 or $24.99, something like that. And it sold for, if I remember correctly, $70 back then.
Okay, good.
Which was still a lot of money. And as soon as I saw the dollar signs and it was paid, I was off and running. I did all kinds of stuff with the store. My dad would have been completely blown away by like the reach that you could have with something that you can't really touch or something. We had like the sew-on patches for different bands, and it was a lot like rock bands, heavy metal bands. But one particular instance, I don't know if you remember, they did the Dutch auctions, or you could do like a second offer.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
There were these patches. It was by the band Jethro Tull, and it was called something like the Broadsword and something. I forget exactly what the name, but we couldn't have given them away with a hot dog and an order of fries if that came down to it at the store. We had them for like $1 a piece, and I had was 3 dozen of these things, brand new. I listed them. The first one sold, and that one for like $80. Wow.
Oh, God.
So then I sent a second offer to somebody else, $75. I never sold any one of those patches for under $40. I was shipping all over the world. No, so I started really getting on a good routine with it. I wound up getting to the point where I was going crazy. Matter of fact, my wife had to slap me back into reality about it, because I was 6 nights a week, and I'd just be like trying to post. And that was back when you used Photo Bucket for your images.
That's funny that you say that. I got an email from them last week about your account is dormant. You haven't used it. I'm like, yeah, I probably hadn't touched it in 15 years.
Be careful with them. I do, my main business right now is a lot of IT and small business support for different things. And there's a lot of spam and phishing that's going out
Right. Yeah.
from stuff like
Yeah. I
that.
figured that's what it was because like I haven't even heard that word
Mm.
in over 10 years.
Oh, it's funny. And it's funny too, because doing eBay back then, I didn't want to just put just plain looking auctions and everything. And you had a little bit more freedom when it came to coding. And I learned how to code that way. That's what started the whole ball rolling with my current business. And eventually I wound up getting into web design and graphic design and all that. And it was a pretty helpful tool with that. No, the things that I've sold on there, like over the years, has been insane. I mean, I never would have fathomed it. When I went into business for myself with, the current thing, I worked with a lot of car dealerships. Eventually I segued into like independent small businesses, contractors. And when I started, the bulk of my clientele were car dealerships, small car dealers. And I had one that he said, well, you do a lot with that eBay thing, and I have a boat. Would you be interested in selling it? And
Oh,
I'm up for a challenge, not for a disaster. And it was the coolest
I
thing.
love that.
It's one of those things. What I wound up doing, it looked like like a jet type of boat, like one of those like racing boats, but it was a one-man boat. And I had asked, I said, well, what's your bottom line on this? How much are you looking to get for this? I would be tickled pink with $500.
Mhm.
Okay, I list it. When the auction closed, and that's back to when everybody was doing auctions, a buy it now was unheard of.
Mhm.
And a guy bought it up in Maine, drove all the way down for it. He paid $1,800 for the boat when it was all said and done.
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously, I got a commission off that, but that was good. That's food for thought.
Right.
But no, and I had another dealer, and he says, "Well, I'm into classic cars, a lot of the '60s and '70s stuff." And he says, "I need you to come and take a look at this car. Tell me what your honest assessment is of it, and what do you think I should pay for it? Guy wants to sell it, and all that." So we go to look at this car, and it wound up being it was either a '69 or a '70 Mustang, Boss Mustang. And I went through the car, and it had all the broadcast sheets and the rebuild sheets on. This thing it looked like it rolled out of the showroom. And he says, "What's your honest thought?" I said, "Well, I would throw an offer at him for like $30,000 on it." And he was just like, totally freaked out the whole time. And he's like, "I'm going to take your word for this. I'll buy this car. And if I spend $30,000 and I lose money on this thing, I'm not going to see you again." And like I said, he was one of my clients. Got the car trailered back, and I got it up online. And no word of a lie, within 24 hours, I sold the car for him for $95,000. It was one of the hugest things that I've ever done. People underestimate in a lot of cases what you can do as far as like the internet, and the more eyes you have on it, the better. He was completely stunned,
Mhm.
completely stunned about that. So I've had some pretty interesting things.
What do you focus on to resell now?
I focus more so on like antique type of things, a lot of toys, music, of course. When I started really going full bore, the music, it was a weird turn of events, because at the time, I was the manager of a car dealership. Kind of morbid to some people, kind of opportunistic, and I'm more of an opportunistic person. There was a band that was called Pantera, and right around that time, I had just started getting into selling guitars as a dealer. The guitarist for the band, his name was Dimebag Darrell, and he was really, really a coveted guitar player from the heavy metal community. Well, he was assassinated on stage during a show in
Oh,
Ohio. It was unbelievable. It was right up there with the whole John Lennon assassination. But the night before, I had been looking through one of the catalogs that I had, and it was called Musician's Friend, and they had all of his signature line guitars. When I was on my way to work and I hear the news of the shooting and all that, I called Musician's Friend and asked what they had for inventory, and I bought out every single piece that they had in the warehouse at retail for that, because I knew what was going to happen. Now, bear in
exactly.
mind, my parents and I, we also used to do the state fair. That was at the time, it was called Rocky Hill State Fair. And we were set up when Elvis died.
Oh,
And when that happened, the very first thing my mom said was, go back to the store, grab anything that says Elvis on it. I don't care if it's a matchbook cover, get it back here to the fair. Things were going absolutely nuts with that, as far as somebody won't give an artist a second thought or a second look, but the moment somebody passes away, all of a sudden it explodes.
right,
So I saw what they did, and this is back in the days of 8-track tapes,
right.
and normal retail on an 8-track tape was $4.99,
I was gonna say
$5.99.
$5. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And the tapes were flying out of there at like $20 a piece, and this is back in like the 70s. But people were like, they're looking at the stand. My parents didn't have to say a word. They were just like, all right, well, this is all we have left. We're taking offers. And people were just throwing dumb offers at them. They're like, we don't even have to mark them up like crazy. Just, let the public dictate. That's kind of what I wound up doing. I brought in all these guitars and I put them up for auction. And there was some guitars I paid $179 retail for, and they were blowing completely out for $900. It
Oh,
was insane. It was absolutely insane. There's one part of me that it's like, it's kind of a morbid approach, but it's part of life.
well,
It's
and the longer I'm in the reselling business, the more I see this with after someone passes away, their items becoming more valuable. And I mean, there is a stigma with that, price gouging. But if it's on eBay and you've got it up for sale, it's up to the buyer to pay what they want to pay. So you can put
right.
whatever price you want on it. You can put it
Mhm.
for auction. You can have it buy it now with an offer, and it's just going to happen. It's
Right.
it's just
You're
part
only
of
going
the
to pay what you want.
business. And it really used to annoy me when that would happen, like after Michael Jackson died and all his stuff goes up for sale. And
Mhm.
if you already have it and you just increase the price, as morbid as it seems, that's just the marketplace. That's just what's going to happen.
And that's the funny thing, that when you say that, because I still had a whole bunch of leftover Michael Jackson items when he
Mhm.
passed away. And I was at the point, I'm like, I can't even work up the energy to even get this stuff listed,
Mhm.
because I knew he was so big where there was going to be such a bum rush of like anybody and everybody trying to sell this. And obviously they're going to be at inflated prices. I'm like, I'll let them all go on the feeding frenzy. I just didn't have it in me to do that. And I had some fairly rare stuff,
And
but
that was more of a modern day situation. If you go back to Elvis, which he died August 16th, 1977.
yep.
And I know this because my birthday is the 15th.
Ah,
And my friends were over and we were packing up from a slumber party and we heard it on the radio, and I'll just never forget that. And
Yeah.
my mother was in the kitchen freaking out, and that was different than what
Yeah.
we've got today. And everybody already has this stuff online, and concert t-shirts, that's a well-known profitable thing to sell. So it changes as time goes along, but still, if you have that stuff already, at some point somebody's going to buy it.
And that's the funny thing, because when it came to Michael Jackson stuff, like I said, at our store, we sold all kinds of like rock stuff. And I literally donated grosses of boxes of concert shirts, Michael Jackson concert shirts.
Really?
'Cause I'm looking at like all brand new product, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to sell this many shirts. There's no way. And fast forward, a decade or so, and God, I could have retired with
Well,
the money
but
I would
now
have
they're
gotten from that.
making, fake ones. They've,
Yeah.
Kohl's has all their, they say vintage inspired
Hmm.
t-shirts. And if you're new to this business and you don't know, you
Oh
really
yeah.
have to look at all the details, where it was made, the stitching, all of that. You can't just assume, oh, I found a vintage Michael Jackson concert shirt, because it could
Yeah.
have just been made a month ago in China and it's made to look like the real vintage. There's so much of that going on with
Oh, that blew up.
vintage inspired stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's like going into like Pure One Imports or something,
Yes.
or like Target, and buying something that's antiqued, or anything, because it's got bronze paint on it to look like
Well, although some
rust.
of that Pier 1 stuff from the 90s is valuable.
All right. No,
Um,
I get that.
it wasn't made forever, and some of the coffee mugs can be pretty valuable. So you really can't have a hard and fast rule of like, don't buy anything Pier 1, don't buy anything Target. But as far as it's a trend now of reproducing these items
Hmm. And that kind
for
of hurts
modern
the market.
day. Yeah, and it just be cool and fun and all of that. But when they make 8 million fake Michael Jackson concert t-shirts, it's not special.
Hmm. Well, it's funny because I stopped at a yard sale one day. It was This is going back a couple of years ago, and when I pull up to a yard sale, I'm scanning it before I've
You're
even
in the
turned off the
zone,
car.
man.
Oh, are you kidding? I'm laser focused on that, because I can
Right.
spot a dud. And if it's like kids' toys, like, I know it's like even some of the little type stuff sells, but if it's all newer type of stuff, I don't want to waste my time. And I pull up to this one, and I see a bunch of clothing racks and all that. I'm like, yeah, I'm really kind of not. That's not my thing. But I saw like tools, and a couple of things that were like on the edge of their garage. So I start walking in, and as I'm walking by the clothing racks, I look and I saw a concert shirt, a tour shirt. I'm like, all right, well, that stopped me right there. I'm not even going to catch that on the way back. I want to stop and look at it right then and there. Well, apparently the people that were having the yard sale worked for one of the local promoters. There were two or three big promoters for concerts in the area, and they worked security and concession for the promoter. And they had probably, I think, I want to say it was around 25 shirts for different bands and tours. And I'm looking, and the first one I took out was America from 1976, the band.
Oh,
Then,
on a horse with no name?
yep, Sister Golden here and all that.
Yeah.
But then I'm going through and I'm finding Aerosmith, 1975, and
Uh-huh.
it was a really oddball configuration. It was yellow, black lettering, and I mean, this thing was like out of the wrapper. That I think they maybe wore it once. And I said, well, how much were you looking on the shirts? We're looking probably about, like $7 a piece. Okay. How much did you want for the whole thing? Oh, geez. And that's the beauty about buying bulk is They wanted, like $5 to $7 a piece. And he says, well, you know what? Give me $25, take them all. It's all the less I got to pack up. One of the things, and I still have it right now, is it's a crew member's tour jacket from Alice Cooper from the Welcome to My Nightmare tour 1975. This is like holy grail stuff for Cooper fans. But I took a bunch of the shirts. There's a couple of Aerosmiths, a few Alice Cooper shirts, Kansas, all that. The very first shirt I put up was the Aerosmith, the 75 tour, and I sent it to Japan. The guy, now this is at the time, the guy who bought it in Japan paid $475 for it. And this is going back probably about 12 years ago, 15 years ago at least. It was insane. I think all told, I had to make probably about 5-6 grand off of a $25 investment. Those are the type of things. I mean, who doesn't? But those are the type of things I like to be able to score.
Yeah, you want a truckload of those.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It was an office supply place, and they would take all their returns and open box goods, and they put it towards the back of the place, and whatever the price was, whatever the guy who was running it, he's just, you're here to get rid of it, price it how you want. And I think somebody even on one of your podcasts had mentioned ink toners.
Toner cartridges, right.
Right. Now they had the ink cartridges, they had the big toner cartridges and all that. And I was using HP at the time. So I zeroed in on all the HP. I had no use for Brother or Canon or anything, but well, how much are you looking at on the toners? $10 each. So what if I bought them all out? What do you figure is right? $175? Okay. I buy the whole thing. Now, I've got a ton of these stories. I buy the whole thing. I come home. I got to preface this. My wife has got to be one of the most tolerant saints to walk the planet Earth, because I think anybody else, it's kind of the same reaction almost every time. I walk in and I'm unloading all these toners, and the first question is always, why? Which I know she knows the answer, but it's why.
Well, after a few years, she doesn't even ask anymore, right?
No, she just shakes her head. She shakes her head. I wound up selling almost every one of them except for maybe like a handful. And that brought in well over $6,000 in gross sales for that.
So what does she say after the fact? Okay, there's worse things you can bring home than that.
Well, it's funny because, like, another instance, I was really on a hardcore G.I. Joe kick. And I buy up collections, the original ones, not those little 3-inch ones. I bought a guy's collection out in Maine. Matter of fact, I bought him out in eBay, on eBay. Literally sends me 4 or 5 big cardboard boxes full of stuff. My wife comes home from work. I'm sorting through everything because I put things together to see if I had complete sets and what wasn't G.I. Joe authentic and all this. So she walks in. I'm sitting on the floor surrounded by G.I. Joes and G.I. Joe clothing and accessories and everything. And she just walks in and is like, you look like a 5-year-old on Christmas Day. I probably 5x'd what I spent on it.
Right.
It's a matter too, as far as buying at the right time. I'd always buy in the slow season. Always. You start getting around like August or so, I'd be buying up things for penny on the dollar right off of eBay, all like collector stuff, and just wait. Then we start getting into October, November, and the stuff would just blow up online.
Right.
I'm hardcore into the band Kiss.
Oh, you are?
Oh God.
My brother was, wait, what year were you born?
64.
Okay. My brother, he was born in 68. He was so
Yeah,
into Kiss. He was somebody from Kiss every Halloween when he was,
yeah.
middle
I,
school
I didn't want to.
age.
I didn't want to do that because where I grew up, if I dressed up like somebody from Kiss, I would have gotten beaten up.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I had somebody contact me and said, "Hey, listen, I'm getting divorced. I'm liquidating my whole collection." No word of a lie. We had a minivan that was so packed, I couldn't even pick my son up from work because I couldn't fit him in the van. And again, it's why? Well, I broke off a chunk of it because there was a lot of Spencer's Gifts era stuff, and I'm not really into that stuff. I'm into the '70s or
Right.
coin era stuff they call it. And but I made all the money back that I spent, and plus a profit, and I still probably have at least half of the collection that I bought out that's just sitting there waiting till the right
Mhm.
moment. We'll just put it that way. But it's like with collecting and buying, what my oldest son is going back to his old days where he's buying a lot of the Pokemon cards. I can't believe the prices of those and what they're bringing in. But what I explain to a lot of people is you have the things that you grew up with, and you get rid of them, and they just kind of like stagnant for a while. But then once you hit your late 30s and your mid 40s, you're settled. You have more disposable income, a better job, and everything. Now the value starts to shoot up.
Mhm.
So, I was into the GI Joes. I had one GI Joe that it was a very limited run that they did from Canada. It was a state trooper thing that they had, and
Mhm.
Hasbro nixed the whole project. They ran the whole project for probably about I think it was like 6 months. What they did was they took all the runs that they had left, and they were notorious for this. They would dig a hole somewhere in like one of the nearby towns in like an empty lot. They would literally dig a hole and dump all that stuff in there, any kind of Hasbro items. And they did that with those. They had that. They had a race car driver. Anything that Hasbro manufactured, if there was an overage, it went into a like their own landfill.
Really?
Oh
What a
yeah.
waste.
I came across a guy that a guy who knows a guy, but one of the guys that worked for Hasbro who used to take the stuff out in the truck and remembered where some of the burial spots were. So guess what? The guy I know, he goes down and he starts digging stuff up. He's
Oh.
hitting these cash pots all over the place. So I wound up buying a few things. I wound up buying prototypes from them that, because what would happen would be they would run a test mold through. So like with the state trooper, what they had was it had a helmet, and he was on a motorcycle, and they ran tests for that. So then they would check the condition of the blank, and all right, well, we got to make an adjustment here for when they do the injection mold. Those things are holy grail like you would not believe. And I wound up with like four of them, and I sat on them for a while, and finally I'm like, you know what? It's not doing me any good sitting there. I'll get rid of it.
So
So I
you
throw
don't
one
go
up.
to thrift stores, you go to GI Joe archaeological digs to get your items.
Hey, if they dug up King Tut, I would have sold them. you know, but I threw one on. I'm like, all right, let me put out a feeler on this, and just that helmet alone did $1,200. It was insane, and I had four of them. I'm like, yeah, I can be persuaded to get rid of these. So
Yeah.
it was crazy. Well, a lot of stuff like that. The figure itself, I mean, it was one of my favorites. I I wound up parting with it, and when I sold it, I got $3,700 for it, and it was one of my original figures, but the uniform in it was right out of the packaging. I had pictures of me opening the package, which some collectors would cringe. I documented every step, for collector's sake. and I got 3,700 for that. I got big money. I'd say about a year after that, it went from $3,700 to something that was in lesser condition than what I had, and down to like $1,100. So I caught it just at the right time.
Well, and you fall in a category of serious collector, other than just eBay picker. I mean, your business is about bulk buying and holding until the value goes up, and very specific items.
Well, it's funny because I'll call it spidey senses or whatever. I get the
Right.
tingle, but and I'm not trying to pat myself on my back or anything like that. But I can go into somewhere and I can spot something that's like, oh, wait a minute, and I'll go to a Goodwill or Salvation Army or whatever, and I'll spot something, and I just know. I won't even check comps on it or anything, but I know. And it'll be something like, I'll spend $2 on it, and I get it up online, and next thing you know, the thing's fetching $100 plus.
Mm-hmm.
You just know. The mentality that I use on that is, if I were looking for something, what would I realistically pay on the high end to kind of like gauge what it is? But there was a chain, the Christmas tree shops. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're
we have
familiar with
them.
them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I would go into Christmas tree shops, and this is going back probably about a little under 20 years. But I went in, and this is where the whole retail arbitrage thing comes into play. Because I went in one time, and they had these wooden boats that were on like a pedestal. You put it on a shelf or a mantle and everything. And they were really well made. And, like they had the Chris Crafts. And I said, well, I think they were like, I want to say like $7.99 a piece. And I bought everything they had off the shelf. And I got the look when I came home. Well, why? I threw them online, and I'm like, I'll give it 2 weeks. If none of them sell, I have the receipt. I'll bring them right back. I sold every single one of them. I had a little over a dozen. I sold every single one that I had, $94.99, and I dropped a couple of them down to $74.99, and
Oh,
they just out they went.
over
You
10
know,
times what you paid.
oh yeah, yeah. It's what, if somebody wanted to send an offer, hey, I'll give you $20 for it. I mean, I could have done it, and I still would have made money. You can always go down, but I looked at it. I saw what the perceived value of it was going to be, and kind of go from there. There's a knack to it, and it's kind of an art form. There's a challenge. Goodwill, before they started like really spiking their prices and sending everything to shopgoodwill.com. The Goodwill that we have is right next to an Aldi's supermarket. And I said, well, I'll meet you there, and talking to my wife, and I run in, and I'm looking around, and I know all the sweet spots. They had a framed autograph cast photo of The Sopranos. I'm looking at that, and they wanted $300 for it. I kind
At
of like,
Goodwill?
at Goodwill. Yeah, they had it in the
$300.
showcase. $300 at
Is that
Goodwill.
gosh, maybe that's a Rhode Island inflation high price thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that's happening everywhere, but that's kind of a lot, Goodwill. Like,
And
kind of
that was
proud of
before the
that.
spike.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was before the spike, right? So I go back, and I'm like on the fence about it, talk to my wife. I said, listen, and I told her what they had. And she's like, that's an awful lot of money to spend. She's a very conservative person. She got me with a coupon. That's how we
Well,
got
I mean, and
married.
that's good because that y'all balance each other out.
Oh no, we do. She keeps me in check.
Right.
But she also knows if I feel strong about it, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm also like a foot and a half taller than she is, but she could still whoop me. But I said, this is what they want. They want $300 for it. I don't know. She's like, and I'm gonna use I hate to say stereotypical mentality for a guy, but if she says no, then that means it's a yes, because she's like, I wouldn't do it. It's a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to regret it if I don't. Off I go. I grab the thing for $300, and I can't believe you spend that much on that. Well, we'll see what happens. At the least, I might break even. I think 1 out of 100 I might lose, and I don't lose much. And I threw it online, and no word of a lie, it was like 14 hours later, it sold for 675. And the guy was tickled pink about it. So, of course, I'm like, hey, that thing you said I shouldn't buy?
I just doubled our money on that. Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I do like nickel dime things before, and unless it's something that I can bulk process really, really super fast, back in the turbo lister days, because I could set up a
Oh,
bulk
turbo
amount.
lister. Yep. Uh-huh.
Oh, I wish they still had that. I'm a pretty busy person, so if I got to take my time away from whatever it is I'm going to do, it's got to be kind of worth my while to get into it. There's a lot of opportunity out there for people, if you want to make money and all that, but you got to know what it is that you're buying, and just all different kinds of things. I mean, I could spend 6 hours going through some of the stuff that I've bought, and 10x, 20x what I've made. Different
Right.
guitars that I've bought. I have a couple that I had bought. One I paid $100 for, and I literally just sold it on the site called Reverb. They
Okay.
do all musical instruments, and I got almost $1,000 for that. Another one, it was kind of a roll of the dice, and somebody contacted me that had it was an old acoustic guitar, and if I was interested, because they knew I buy guitars, and I wound up paying $400 for the guitar, which is a stretch for me. You never know how much work I'm going to have to put into it. I'll do a lot of it myself, because if I send it out to a luthier, it's going to cost a ton. But the guitar wound up being it was a 71 Gibson acoustic. Put it up, and the thing sold like instantly for just under $2,000.
Well, sounds like you know what you're doing in those specialty categories. And we have reached the end of our time here. Do you have any last words for the listeners?
You got to kind of go with your gut. Don't go with your ego. That's one of the biggest things. So I've dealt with a lot of people over the years that were collectors. If you go with ego and an intentional greed, you're going to hurt yourself more than anything. I don't like chasing nickels. You kind of have to keep your head like really straight, know when to walk away from different things,
Right.
and all that. But that's why, like I said, my store is stocked like super light right now, just because if I blew it up and put a ton of items in it, I know I'm going to sell. And I'd rather put some quality stuff in there, but it's going to turn into a runaway train, and then it gets overwhelming. I mean, I literally just had 2 items when I went to go get them. Of course, I couldn't find them, and I'm pretty good as far as like keeping my inventory where it needs to be, where I know I can grab it. And I've always had the whole process down with like thermal printers and you name it and everything. It's got to be kept controllable. If I had 2,000 items in my store, forget it. I'd be a basket case.
Right.
But now here's a question for the listeners. All right, I'm curious to see how many people out there that are like a magnetic draw for boxes.
Oh, like we have a box obsession.
I have this thing, and again, back to my wife. I'll grab a box, like it's just a random box, and she'll be like, "Why?" Because I have something I'm probably going to ship in it. Well, what is it? I don't know yet. I've had, like, I just sold a beer tap. It cost me like a quarter, and I sold the beer tap for it was like just under $20. But I had a box that the whole thing folded into kind of like a triangle, but the tap fit right into it. Perfect. I didn't.
Right.
The only thing, I put something on it just for that. But you see something that you're going to need exactly that configuration for, and it's like spot on and everything. I get oh, I gotta have that. I gotta have that. She thinks I've lost my mind completely. Like I said,
Well, I mean, I have that same thought. This is a nice, high quality, sturdy box. I'll be able to use this for something. Or you already know, oh, this is perfect for that thing I have. So I think we get that way as time goes on and we do more shipping. It's like, we can recognize, oh, yeah, I would definitely use that. So
Oh
I
yeah,
like
it is.
the super reinforced ones that something heavy was shipped in. And I just don't think you can have too many boxes on hand. And if you do, just take them to the recycler or donate them or put them on a Facebook page, free boxes. You'll find a home for them.
Oh
But
well, it's funny
it's
because
better to have too many than go to ship something and then you have to make a box. And not that we can't do it, it's just time consuming.
I sold an autoclave on eBay. I wound up one of my clients was an oral surgeon, and he passed away, and I took care of everything for him. I did his HR, I did his marketing website, everything. And I was one of the few people that I actually trusted and knew what was going on with his business. Well, his daughter contacted me and said, listen, we sold the building. We got to get rid of stuff. Come down. I had to decommission all their computers because of HIPAA laws and stuff. But she's like, just take this stuff out. And I had a hard time, but they had a panoramic x-ray machine, dental x-ray machine, like 700 pounds. And it killed me to pass on it. But when it comes to like biohazard laws and the weight and all that, I'm like, I'm not even going down this route. I had an autoclave. I wound up having to create a box for a Franken box for it. It was crazy. It was totally crazy. Yeah, there's nothing worse than panicking. Like, I don't have a box to ship this thing in. What am I going to do? You're scrambling. And guitar boxes, just the cardboard guitar boxes alone, run anywhere from $20 to $30 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd get them in. Like, I had the guitar dealership for a while. I was actually the largest Washburn guitar dealership in New England. I always made sure I had boxes. So if I buy a used guitar somewhere, I redo it, I've got a box to ship it out on. I don't have to go into panic mode.
Thank you for reaching out, and
My
more
pleasure. Thank
importantly,
you for
for
having me.
coming on and talking about your specific business. I learned a lot listening to you. So, okay, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and best of luck to you with everything you're
Thanks.
doing, although it doesn't sound like you need it. Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Next week, my guest is Donna, who last joined us on the podcast back in May of 2023. She'll be catching us up on what's been happening in her eBay business and life over the past 3 years. I always enjoy reconnecting with sellers after some time has passed because their stories remind us that eBay is a journey. Businesses evolve, priorities change, life happens, and sometimes we step away for a while and come back stronger than ever. It's a great reminder that there's no single path to success and that eBay can be a sustainable business through many seasons of life. Thank you so much for listening and for supporting this podcast. Without the eBay community, this podcast would not be possible. I hope you have a profitable, productive, and enjoyable week. Until next time, happy selling. Bye, everybody.